right. Okay, so this is our last Sunday of the month, this month of love. We all month long have been focusing on love, that power of love that is beyond an emotion, beyond the kind of dualistic notion of love and its opposite. We're talking about the power of love. And so we began the month by activating love. And I shared some examples of people who were actively sharing their love and compassion. You might remember folks who were helping out after the devastating fires in Los Angeles. And that sort of was a confirmation to us that love is at the core of our being. For all of us, love is at the core of our being. And when we're pushed, literally into a fire, that's what emerges, is love. And then we talked about the vibrational field of love, that creative, higher vibration energy, and how to align ourselves with it. And then from that place, we affirm our good, right? Then the following week, we awakened to love, and we talked about how most are asleep, that sleep of Adam, that we're asleep and dreaming this big dream of separation and fear, but that conscious evolution, the natural process of conscious evolution, is beginning to wake us up. And then last week, Nathan spoke to us about identifying and really dismantling the barriers that we have created around ourselves to protect us, to keep us safe, but that at the same time prevent us from our growth and from the full experience of love. Was that about it? A little bit? Yeah. Okay. So we are, with all of this, we are in the process of shifting that old consciousness that would have us looking outside of ourselves for love, looking for someone else to love us, because we think that that's what's missing. And we're shifting that now to understand that the source of love is within us, right? And we experience that fully when we share it with others. That's rather than, seeking to find someone to love us, we are seeking to love because it is our nature. That's who we are. This essence of infinite love expressing, right? Expressing, that's the key word. And you just need to watch little children to know that this is true. So why do we give little kids stuffed animals? The stuffed animals can't love them, right? They're inanimate. But children need to love something. They need to express their love. They need to have that experience of expressing their love, right? And it's just vital to their well-being. And you see kids just showering oodles and oodles of love and their stuffed animals. And boy, if they ever lose that beloved thing, whoo, catastrophic, right? So I've shared this little story here before, but it really fits here. When my kids, I have twin daughters, when they were around five, we were living in Los Angeles, and we took a trip to Catalina. And my daughter Olivia had this beloved stuffed animal dog, this white dog that she carried with her everywhere. And we were standing at the top of the cliff looking over the beautiful bay in Catalina. And don't you know, you know what happened next. She dropped it and it just tumbled down the cliff and into the bay, and the waves are taking out this stuffed animal, and she is apoplectic, and we're all running down the cliff and standing at the shore waiting for the waves to bring the stuffed animal back, but it was bringing it further out to sea. And we saw a boat taxi service on the shore, and there was a guy there. She ran up to the guy, and she's like, "Please go rescue my dog," right? And fortunately, this guy had children, so he understood. Right? He understood how important it was to her and to the peace of the whole family. And so he got in his boat and he actually went out and rescued her little stuffed animal dog, brought back this soaking wet, and she was like, oh my God. This guy was a hero in our family for weeks, let me tell you. And if you have children, you may have had a similar story, right? It's just they love them so much. We divine beings having a human experience need the opportunity to love. We need the opportunity to love. It is vital for our well-being. And if we deny that essential aspect of who we are, an important part of us dies. And we become self-involved, small-minded, right? And so we want to not only open to the infinite love that is within us, but to share that with others. Right? Love one another is what Jesus shared with us over and over again in many different ways. Not only because it makes us holy, but really because it makes us whole. It makes us whole. And just this morning, I saw a quote. Plato said, "Love is the name for our pursuit of wholeness, for our desire to be complete." Love. But of course, it's not so simple, is it? It's not so easy to love everyone. I mean, if everyone was loving and kind and compassionate, if everyone thought like we did and did what we wanted them to do, sure, piece of cake, I can do that. We can all do that. But that's not the case, is it? Because everyone sees things differently. Everyone has a different idea about what should be. Sometimes vastly different. And sometimes people in their life have been hurt. They're wounded, right? And they have maybe built these barriers around themselves to protect their vulnerability, sometimes so much so that you can't tell that there was any love there ever at all. And maybe they never were given a wonderful toy to love, or maybe they weren't loved, right? We don't know. But these are the people that we run into on a daily basis. Sometimes it's the people that we work with. Sometimes it's the people that we choose to have a relationship with. Now, of course, we're the ones with a correct point of view, right? We do it all correctly. They're the ones that are wrong. And we're always loving and kind and compassionate. No? Of course not. We are all in this crazy upside down world. We are all in this big dream of separation and fear. We are all on this messy journey toward wholeness. And when we understand that, we have the basis to be able to forgive, which when we do, brings us back to our natural state of love. Now, I talk about forgiveness a lot here because, well, it's important to a spiritual path, to any spiritual path. And also, physically speaking, holding resentments and unforgiveness creates a toxic energy in our body, in our mind, in our soul. It is the thing that blocks the flow of good in our lives, the biggest thing, kills our dreams. Even little resentments, which are because they build up. Resentment is a little bit different than unforgiveness, as Louisa Rogers explained in a recent article in Unity magazine, which now is called Spirituality and Health, but Unity still publishes this. She says, I think of resentment as curdled, stored anger, a persistent, ongoing bitterness towards someone for perceived wrongdoings. Resentment often stems from a sense of injustice, betrayal, or disappointment. A resentful person dwells on past grievances and holds on to the negative emotions associated with them. And then the article goes on to talk about how holding on to resentments can shorten the telomeres in our DNA. I know you know what that is, right? It's the very tips of the ends of all of our strands of DNA. Kind of like the tips at the end of a shoelace, but much smaller. And times millions, right? It shortens the telomeres, which in turn, holding on to resentments does this, and negative emotions, which in turn causes our cells to age prematurely. Causes our cells to age prematurely. And here's the thing. Holding on to for unforgiveness doesn't affect the other person, right? Doesn't affect that other person. They're not affected. But it's not about the other person. It's about us. It's about us. So when we learn and practice the art of forgiveness, and it is an art, not a science. When we practice it, it frees us from that heavy burden, and life can flow abundantly again, and apparently we live longer. All good things, right? So I think, though, first we need to clarify what we mean by forgiveness, because I think a lot of people get confused and have different ideas about that. So let's all get on the same page. Let's look at what forgiveness is not first. And that would be the next slide. Yeah, okay. First of all, forgiveness is not condoning someone's hurtful behavior. It doesn't mean excusing what someone has done. You can practice forgiveness and still hold someone accountable and speak out and march, whatever it is you want to do. They're not mutually exclusive. You're just doing it from a different place, from a place of love and forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about opening ourselves up to be hurt. We'll go on to the next one. Is not opening ourselves up to be hurt by that person again. It's not an invitation to someone who is acting abusive to stay with you. In fact, forgiveness can and probably should be done at a distance most of the time. Again, it's not about them, it's about us. The next one is forgiveness is not about burying our feelings, pretending that we weren't hurt, or praying our anger away. Right? Actually, a first step in the forgiveness process is to own our feelings. Because once we own our feelings, once we understand what they are, we can release them in a healthy way. Next, forgiveness is also not a way to absolve ourselves of responsibility or to prove how spiritually mature we are. See how mature I am. I'm so spiritual, I'm forgiving you. and then not acknowledge the part that we might have played in the situation. Because if we really search our heart, we might find something that can really help us grow. You know, that the thing that we've been talking about all month, that catalyst that can really help us grow. It could be hidden in that. Okay, let's look at what forgiveness is. It is a recognition that the other individual is a fallible human being, to err is human, who has temporarily forgotten who they are, forgotten their oneness with Source, forgotten that infinite love that is at the core of their being, right? And forgotten their oneness with others. They've acted from a place of unconsciousness. So the key to being able to forgive anyone is to remember that everyone does the best they can with the consciousness they have at the time. That's the key, with the consciousness that they have at the time. That's forgiveness. All right. So we want to keep in mind, too, that when we forgive, we are giving a gift to ourselves because it opens us up for peace, for love, for healing to happen. Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King said this, and did I give you that one? Is that one next? Yes. Okay. Yeah, and okay, so remember what he was facing, right? Remember the world that he was in when he was coming up and what he was doing. Keep that in mind. He says, we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Yeah. Now, the other wonderful thing about forgiveness is that when we practice this, not only is it really freeing us, but we're also contributing to the shift in the collective consciousness, making it easier for others to access this love and forgiveness. So we're really performing a service, right? Not to say that forgiveness is easy. It is not, particularly when there's, been some really big thing that's happened. A big betrayal, a big wound, somebody who hurts others, right? That is not so easy. Not so easy. So we want to keep in mind that forgiveness is a practice. It's a process. It is a process. Jesus told us to forgive 70 times 7. I don't think he was being literal, although I think 7 is a sacred number, right? So there's some sacredness about this. But it's the idea that it's a process. It's something that we practice. And that process begins with a willingness. I mean, if you think you can't get to that point of being able to forgive somebody, just the willingness. I'm willing to be able to do this. That's where forgiveness starts. And then we get closer to the goal of forgiveness every time we practice. Okay? So this week, I want you to think about these ideas and in terms of anything in your past, anything in your present, anybody in your life, that maybe there's some resentment, there's some unforgiveness, there's still some stickiness there. And keep this in mind, these ideas about what forgiveness is, and that it is a practice. And then next week, we're going to be talking about forgiving ourselves, which a lot of people say is just as difficult, if not more so, than forgiving others. So come back for that. Same time, same back channel. All right, namaste. Hi, it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank you.